Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode. I'm very happy that you're listening today. I have a special guest today called Friederike. She's an intuitive coach and also a life change facilitator. And what makes her very special as well, she has a background in classical singing. And she now also uses her voice for sound channeling, where she channels messages that also provides a lot of people the healing they need. I'm very happy to have you here today, Friederike.
Well, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be here.
Amazing. And what inspires you to do the work that you do today?
Well, my life would be the short answer. The work as a intuitive coach or life change facilitator is what I like to say, came to me through my own transformation. Already when I was graduating from high school, I was suffering from insomnia, so I couldn't sleep. I wrote all my exams with 2 hours of sleep or less, and it kept on going after that. And I started to be interested in, different philosophies. And back then it was like Buddhism that I got interested in, and meditation. And fast forward to 2015, I was in a real black hole, you could say. Like, my relationship had just broken up, my job wasn't working out, I was alone, I didn't have any money, so I just felt like I had nothing. So everything had just crumbled in my life, and it was a really, really difficult period. And I discovered self-hypnosis, which is a form of inner child work that I got trained in. And the transformation that I felt within myself, and everything that I learned during this time about the human psyche and about emotions and about, let's say, the emotional logic, inspired me. And the change was for me so profound that I thought, my God, like, people have to know this. And I felt like if we could just make this knowledge and these processes more available to more people, we could change the world. Like, I have this big idealist inside of me who's like, we need to change the world. So yeah. And the singing came to me. I've always wanted to sing. When I was 16, 17, I spent 1 year in the United States. And in the US, everything, or mostly everything, is school-based. So, like, even if you want to do competitive sports or, like singing training or something, you can do that in school. You don't have to get like an expensive private teacher, as it is here in Germany. And so that was where I started with the singing, and where I was encouraged to actually continue. And so that kind of kickstarted this journey into singing, because then I was like, okay, now I really want to do this. And I kept doing it in Germany and went through different teachers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, because what I've experienced myself a lot, that the things that, the things that kind of make us make big changes in our life aren't always like really positive things happening to us. So you also mentioned with the insomnia, and also going through different struggles, that's usually what inspires us to make changes or to completely make a shift in direction. Could you kind of maybe share what was like the pivotal moment for you? So the moment that made you shift your direction in life. Is there any significant situation?
There were several, but the one that stands out was a dance workshop, actually. So after my graduation of high school, I didn't know what to do with my life. So I actually went to France, and I went to Africa, and did kind of cool things to find myself. And eventually I started studying media management, because I thought that's my call, because I realized it's in the Senegal where I was. that people had very little access to information, and I thought that's so important. And anyway, I started doing that, but I was unhappy already after the first couple of days of that, program at the university. Really unhappy, even though it was like a highly selective program. We were only 30 students, and everyone was so happy and honored and privileged to be in this program. I was so unhappy. And I forced myself to keep going because, well, you don't quit like after 3 days. At least I didn't. Most people don't. But still something was always underneath the surface. And 1 year after I think I started studying, I went to a dance workshop several days, because that's what I started with actually as a child, was dancing. And there was a teacher there that gave her heart and soul to her students. Like, her class was very challenging, but also very emotional. Like, if you had great technique, your performance would be great. But actually what she would ask of you is not that your technique is perfect, but that you give your all. And that touched me on a very deep level, in a way that something else hadn't touched me before. And also I was so happy during these 5 days of workshop. I didn't open social media. I didn't open my computer. I didn't check my emails. And I came back home to my apartment back then, and the first thing I did was check my emails, because that's what was expected of you as a media management student, that you were always up to date. And I just started crying. Like, I was crying and crying for hours. And I thought, okay, this, like, something is just wrong here. I need to change. I need to, change directions. So I did. And it was, difficult, because everyone was expecting of me, to do well and to have this path and, have this career laid out for me. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. It just doesn't feel right. No, I just couldn't do it. I was actually enrolled for another semester, because it took, a little bit of time to sign out. And I went to the university once during that time, because I'm like, look, I'm just going to get my statistics credits, so at least I have this module, that's done. And I just couldn't do it. I went there and I immediately felt everything inside me like tense. And I'm like, no, I have to leave. And then I left. And then I decided to, put more effort into singing at that time. So dancing triggered singing, because I knew, in a way, that I'm a realist. I was too old at that time for like a career in classical dancing, and I also loved singing. So that's when my focus went on singing, and actually signed up for a distance university program in psychology. So yeah, that was one big moment. And I'm so grateful to this teacher. I wrote her a few years later. I'm like, you have no idea, like, you changed my life. I just, that was such a deep level of depth and authenticity. She was so authentic in everything, and she still is, everything that she does, that something that I hadn't experienced before.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I can recognize myself also a lot in that, because when I started studying occupational therapy, I just really thought I found it. I found the thing that I was meant to do, and I still think it's a very beautiful profession. But later along, when I was studying it, it kept coming up that this isn't it for you. This isn't it for you. And then I ignored it for some time, and I continued going. And then I failed a test, and it was the first test that I failed, because I just got through it really easily from that point before, because everything came really natural to me, because I love therapy and psychology, and how the human body works and all those things. And it was the first test I failed. And then I had this kind of little breakdown moment where I realized the reason why you failed this test because this is not what you really want. And that moment made me realize it. And then later I was also struggling really with severe anxiety at that time. For me, it was really difficult to stay in a classroom with a lot of people for a long time, and it was draining my energy always. And then I actually got in touch with a practitioner, and she also helped me realize, no, this isn't it for you. And then I really changed direction really fast, and I just went after what I really wanted to do, and it was really helping people, very similar to what you do, helping people on a very deeper level, making changes in their life. And what I also find really inspiring about you, and you really radiate that as well, you're very creative. I think that also you can see that in your singing, and also what you explained your love for dance. I really love dancing as well. And what I've realized lately, that I don't allow myself to be creative as often as I should. So we're very task focused. Oh, I need to get this done and this done. And we don't allow ourselves to play and just to do something, not for a specific goal, but just to create and have fun. And do you maybe have some advice of how you can implement more creativity, more play in your life?
Well, I think everything starts with awareness. So, there's this American, what is she? A motivational speaker. I don't want to do her wrong. Her name is Mel Robbins, and she developed the 5-second rule, which basically aims at getting people to start things, because we all have a tendency to hesitate. So we do get these impulses to do things that we haven't done before. We do get these impulses to be creative. But there is a frame of about 3 to 5 seconds for our unconscious mind to throw everything, like every fear and every belief that we have, in our face unconsciously, and stop us. So if we don't actually get to doing something within these 5 seconds, we don't do it at all, right? And so I think the more you are aware of it, that's the first thing. Because some people say, like, I'm not creative, but it's not true. Like, it's not true. Creativity has so many expressions. Like, for some people, it's cooking. I cannot cook, but, and then it is also very important, and that's what I've seen, unfortunately, in some people or families or relationships, that they actually need to stand their ground to say, no, this is important to me. And to not have to justify that now I'm taking time for myself and to do something that I actually enjoy. That is very important. So if that's, if it's a relationship that is keeping you in this kind of bubble, or a job or something, to find these little windows. And then with respect to what I said to the 5-second rule and these things that your unconscious mind throws up, it's of course very helpful if you understand what these unconscious beliefs are that hold you back. Because I think once you dissolve them in a way, or replace them, or even if you just become aware of them, then there's a window for change. Because most of us are not aware of all these unconscious workings in our mind, So
Yes.
I think this would be a good place to start. So why am I actually not doing this? It's not like I can't. Am I finding excuses? I think the best way is to look at finding listening to your own excuses. Why am I not doing something? Because I always have a reason. There are 10 million reasons why not, and there's usually one big reason why, and that is just because you like it.
Yeah, because that's the thing, we always have to have a reason for doing it, or that's how we kind of been programmed. You have to have a specific goal, or it has to
Mhm.
lead to a result. And it's also, we got to be productive. And a lot of times creativity is seen as unproductive or unimportant, and a lot of times also in
Yeah.
educational systems, like we are really like praised for a lot of other things, except for, you have different schools, of course, who focus more on creative arts. But when we talk about like general, like high school, it's usually, it isn't that important. And that's where I kind of, the period for me where I really lost my creativity, because I
Mm.
was extremely creative as a child, and now I'm kind of in that recovery period. I call it. Very
Yeah.
good book as well for it is The Artist's Way. I
Mhm.
don't know if you heard of it before, but it's
Mhm.
really good because it goes really into what you explained before about how all our excuses and what are all the things that holding us back from
Mhm.
doing it. And that we really have to set the time up for ourselves. Oh, this is just my time of creating and doing something, and not for a particular reason, but just because I like it and I enjoy it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it brings you also more in touch with, um, yeah, with your playful side.
Yeah.
And I was also reading another book, and what was mentioned was a mosaic. So, and I, as a child, I would always love making that. And then I was reminded of, I haven't made it in many years, and I would love it. I just stopped
Mhm.
doing it without knowing why. And just because we think it's not important, that's usually it. And yeah, and but also creativity can actually help you go through difficult periods,
Mhm.
and it can actually help you process emotions or express them. And you definitely probably know that, especially with singing. uh,
Mhm.
I also yesterday had a really long shower, and I just allowed myself to sing, and it was really healing for me at that moment. um, so yeah, and also for people who don't see themselves as great singers or
Yeah.
great artists. Do you maybe have some advice for them, that it doesn't matter, or that you still should allow yourself to do it, and how it can benefit you?
You mean advice on addressing if you think you're not good enough, or
Yes, yes, go for that. Yeah. Um, mm,
it's, I mean, it sounds so simple, but I think you have to just start.
mm,
To start, that's like the most important thing, you know. And some people like working with affirmations, and I know that, I mean, probably both you and I, we know that, you know, affirmations is kind of this, how should I say, um they can work and they cannot work for some mysterious reason.
mm,
So I think what you want to do with affirmations is to find some that work for you. So affirmations are kind of supportive statements, or statements of saying things that you like about yourself, or that you like about your art, or whatever you're trying to produce, right? Um, but if you want to jump the Grand Canyon and go from I hate what I do to I love what I do, it's not going to feel right. But
mm,
you can find something like, wow, I actually like, if it's like a drawing or whatever, the way that I did this part of the painting, the way that I used this color. Or if you're talking about yourself, like find something that you really like if you like your eyes, like, wow, like I really like my eyes. So you start getting into this space of accepting yourself and appreciating yourself little by little. Because sometimes we feel like it's either all or nothing, like you got to do it right, right? But this is just not how life works. So, what came to me also as you were talking about this book, and what we were talking about earlier, how these beliefs, is sometimes the things that you want are already there. You're just not seeing them.
mhm,
So this is a very good reminder to actually look at, am I already creative, for example. Like, wow, I just made this amazing salad, you know, wow, this tastes so good. And that was no recipe or whatever. Maybe you did something with your child. Maybe you found a solution at work that nobody else kind of came up with, all of that is creativity.
Yeah.
And some people just don't recognize that. Or when other people tell us, that's a good indication too. Like, other people will tell you you're so this and that in a positive way, and we don't want to accept it. And of course, you can then look at the resistance. So why do I not want to accept it? But you can also look at it from the other point of view to say, this person is mirroring something, like something good in me that I am not seeing. So maybe I can see it now. you know?
Yeah, because what I would always used to do, whenever someone would give me a compliment, I would kind of push it away. I'd say, yeah, I did it very good, but, and then the but comes, and that is because a lot of times we learn it's very good to be humble. And of course, it has a very positive effect on our life as well to learn to be humble, but it also has a shadow aspect that we can kind of keep ourselves really small. So it's not okay to be really expressive or say about yourself, yeah, I did this very good. And then, instead of thinking that, oh, I'm being like too proud right now, or I should. And I think that is what suppresses our creativity a lot, is all these ways we hold ourselves back. And what you said as well is, I think it's so important to follow that inspired action. And when we don't immediately do that, so we push it forward, okay, I will do it in a few days, for example, and not right away, what kind of happens is that all these limiting beliefs and all these thoughts and excuses that hold us back are now allowed to come in.
Yeah.
And when you completely follow with action right away, you kind of eliminate that. And of course, it's always important to go also to the deeper cause of it. But what I always also teach is embodiment. So when you have an affirmation, what is really important, that it doesn't feel like you're lying to yourself, which you mentioned as well. And that, okay, from this statement that I've just said myself, I am creative, for example, how will I act from that place? Because usually affirmations are seen, oh, something I tell myself or say out loud. But what makes affirmations actually powerful is by acting out of them. Because then you see them as true. So what would someone do if they were creative? And you see it in a curious way. What would someone who is creative do?
Yeah.
And then you say, we create all the time. And that's what you figure out. And being creative can also be going for a walk in nature and look at nature differently. From, oh, wow, this is beautiful. And seeing other things as an art piece. A lot of times we also overcomplicate things as well.
Yes.
And so also a question that I have, a lot of times what holds us back in life is a certain fear. So we have different kind of fears that are holding us back. And what is kind of a fear that held you back a lot in the past, and that it helps you really a lot to become aware of that and make changes in your life? Because I definitely agree with you that awareness is always the first step towards change.
Yeah. Well, for me, I would say there's always a fear of being rejected and abandoned if I speak my truth or if I'm just the way I am. So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with being creative, but I also often ask a lot of questions, for example, and think around the corner, you know? And I made the experience a lot in my childhood that I was often very alone. Or that conflicts didn't really get resolved and was just silenced. And for me, it's always a process of overcoming this fear and still speaking my truth. Because the thing is, if we don't speak our truth, we don't give people that resonate with that truth a chance to enter our lives. Because we're so concerned with the people that we want to keep, and that's understandable, because that's who we know and how we know life. But if they leave us because we express how we really feel or what we really need or how we really think, then maybe that's a good thing that they're leaving us then, and
Mm-hmm.
they will create space for new people to come up, to come in. And something else that came to me when you were talking about the accepting compliments, and then there's always this little but and being humble. A lot of that I feel stems from comparison. So I had a conversation with a family member a while ago about where she said, I don't know if you realize, but we used to be compared all the time when we were little, and you always got better off than me in these comparisons. And I said, yeah, but you know what? We never made these comparisons. Our parents made them for us. So, and by judging one thing as better than the other, more evolved, more creative, more lovable, it harms both. It harms the one who is supposedly not as creative, good, lovable, whatever. And it also harms the other, because what we learn then is if we express the way we actually truly are, then we get separated. So, and that was very profound for me to realize also. And it's a beautiful thing once you step in your authenticity, and it's not something that happens overnight, it's a process. But you will attract these kinds of people. And it was a beautiful moment for me when I realized with some people, I'm like, wow, I realize you don't want to keep me small. I realize with you, I just can't be the way I am. But I needed to maybe let go of some other people, or this fear. For me, is this fear of being alone.
Yeah, and we all fear ending up alone. That's why a lot of times it's so difficult for us to let go of people or things in life that are no longer serving us, because that's it with fear. I think we don't know what's at the other end. So if we do that, we aren't certain that things are going to be better, which usually they are when we let go of things that are no longer serving us, or people that are no longer see us for who we really are. And it's usually because we weren't expressing who we really are. It's not about blaming them or making other people in your life wrong, but it's taking that ownership and saying, okay, I haven't always expressed myself completely. And now that I'm doing that, I'm seeing that certain things in my life need to change. And it can be very difficult to let go of people. I've also been going through that process as well. But what I realized that new people will come in. They really will. And it sometimes can be frustrating because some things take time as well. When your life doesn't change overnight, it's not usually the case. And because I learned that also becoming more authentic is a process in itself, and it's something that we need to focus on every single day. That, okay, in what ways am I not expressing myself? And also, and the reason why I kept myself small for a long time, because I also didn't want other people to feel less than.
Yeah.
And that, but in the end, by making yourself feel worse, that's like a very unhealthy form of self-sacrifice that in the end doesn't serve anyone as well. And we all have things we're better at and we're less good at, and that's okay too. And it's okay to be proud of yourself, or to say, oh, this is really beautiful about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very important, to allow yourself to do that more.
Yeah.
Because we've been fed so much insecurities by society and all the other things. And also I think a lot of, especially women, I don't want to generalize too much, but we do that so often, that we like, when someone, for example, says, oh, you look so good in that dress, and you're like, yeah, but this looks a little bit fat, or you always bring yourself down. And a lot of times it's also because you want to hear like the reaffirming of that other person, like, no, you're not. And well, that's the thing with affirmation as well. A lot of time we're waiting for someone else to come in and to say, yeah, you look really beautiful. But we never allow ourselves to do it. And when we allow ourselves to do it, and we're able to receive that, and we're also able to receive more compliments from other people and actually take them in, instead of feed your insecurity. Yeah, also something, maybe you have some advice for people who can feel like, you already mentioned a few things as well, but if you feel like you're really insecure and you're not confident, you don't feel confident enough to fully express yourself, so to express it authenticity, you maybe have some tips or some advice?
Well, I mean, other than, start and go for it, I totally would advise to look at that. Like maybe with guidance or alone, but look at that insecurity. Like, what is it telling you? Because what is also very important, I think, is to not disregard fear.
Mm-hmm.
You can be aware of it and move forward with an awareness that is there, but you can't ignore it. It's not going to disappear. It just doesn't work. And yeah, to really ask, what is it that I'm afraid of? Sometimes what helps is to play in your mind the worst case scenario. Because what we do often is we're like, let's take like a kind of silly example of, I cannot wear this red dress. Like, I would love to wear it, but no, it's too much. And then, people are gonna not gonna like it, or Aunt Dorothy is gonna say something bad about it, right? And then we stop. We stop the thinking process. But what would actually be interesting is to ask, okay, well, okay, people don't like that dress, or Aunt Dorothy says something bad about it. So then what? What would be so bad about this? Or what else could be so terrible? Like, what else could happen? Really think it through till the end. Because we don't do that, we just stop. It's like we see the mountain and we're like, no, we're not going there. And then maybe it's like a clouded mountain, there's a cloud on top, so we never really see the top. So we just stop. And sometimes what can happen is that we see the worst case and then we're like, you know what, I can live with that. Or then it's good because then you feel okay with it. Then you're like, okay, now I know what I'm getting myself into. So, but if you never do that, you always in this kind of uncomfortable emotional limbo state. And it doesn't help you to get anywhere. You're not going to be happy with wearing the red dress, and you're not going to be happy with wearing the blue dress. No?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's one thing that you can do that I find really helpful. And then yeah, to address this feeling precisely, this fear with guidance. Sometimes we don't go there. We don't want to feel this because we are afraid that we will get stuck in this emotion. And that's mostly because we haven't experienced a resolution of this emotion. And what would actually be very helpful is to feel this emotion till the end, alone or with somebody. Mostly it's actually more helpful to have somebody there.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we realize we are actually not going to get stuck. It's just because that's our memory of not being able to resolve X amount of pain or kind of pain tells us we're gonna get stuck, but we're not. We
Yeah.
can change the pattern,
Yeah, because usually our fears come from specific moments in our life. It's usually there for a reason. And when we realize where all this fear is coming from and becoming more aware of it is usually, I find, the best way. Because it's very good to follow up with the action and do things with fear. But if fear keeps coming back consistently, it is here to, I always say, fear is here to teach you something. Don't just ignore it or push it away or shame it, what can also happen. But really see it as kind of as a teacher, like, okay, there's a reason why I fear this thing. Or a lot of times fear is here to show us what we do want, because sometimes we feel fear because we're not in the right situation in our life or things need to change. And sometimes fear is just that in the moment where we're reminded of something we're not aware of. And then it's really good what you said with following this feeling back. So trace back, oh, where's this fear coming from? Because a lot of fears can seem really irrational. Like, why am I afraid of, for example, wearing a red dress? Who cares? But then we're kind of pushing the fear off, like, oh, you don't matter. And when you're doing like, okay, why do I really fear this? And really go deeper into it. And for me, it was always also been really helpful to help other people guide me through it as well. Because I think it's already healing to have someone else's presence with you when you're in a deep emotional state, because then you also realize that, oh, for example, I can be sad or I can feel a certain emotion, but someone can still be there with me. And because a lot of times we don't want to express our emotions because we think it will push people away from us. Because, like you said with abandonment earlier, a lot of times why we fear abandonment or loneliness is because we've been punished in a certain way. For example, timeouts. We don't see that as, from an adult perspective, as something that's really terrifying. Okay, the kid is just in a room or in a hallway or something for 5 to 10 minutes, let's say. But for a child, it can feel really, really abandoned. Because it creates this belief, like, every time I do something wrong or every time I'm really emotional, it means I will end up alone. And this for me, was a lot of times behind a lot of fears, like these situations. And when you're aware of it, you can change those beliefs and you no longer experience that fear because you're actually healing the cause of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's time we all get in touch a little bit more with our sensitivity. I remembered a few days ago that when I was little, there was a time when I would always have stomach aches in school, like grammar school, 3rd grade or something. So my parents would always have to pick me up from school. And I'd had nothing, We went to the doctor, even went to the hospital, and I had nothing physically. I was just very sensitive to what was going on and didn't really feel like I was fitting in. And there was a teacher who was kind of really kind of an angry person. And then we had a conversation with my teacher, my main teacher. And basically what they told me back then is to grow a thick skin. So basically it was like telling someone who's sensitive to toughen up, And I think that's really sad. And yeah, I don't know what this is coming up now, but I feel that this is a problem with respect to showing emotions, that we are so afraid, because I think many people have made this kind of experience, no matter if they were very, very sensitive or maybe not so sensitive, but we all have made this experience of not having somebody there with us or not being accepted for feeling.
Hmm.
know. So I can just, yeah, I just want to encourage people to embrace that, you know, and also not to abandon friends or something when they're going through shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great because I definitely can relate so much to that. That you try to toughen up, but in the long term, it only leads to like suppressing and a lot of things that only makes things 10 times worse.
Mhm.
And when we're really sensitive, I think it's important to respect our own sensitivity and to listen to it more. And yeah, it's also a thing in society. And I think you also said in the beginning, what inspires you because we need to change things. So
Mhm.
not only on a personal level, on an individual level, but also more on a level of society that
Mhm.
we yeah, we need to be more embrace our own sensitivity and our own emotions more.
Mhm.
Um, so do you maybe have some last advice for yeah, for someone who is kind of toughened up, as we would say it a little bit, and how to kind of tune a little bit more into your own sensitivity. Mm. So kind of
Yes.
redo that process.
um, well, for someone who says that they've toughened up, the first step would be to appreciate that. And it sounds counterintuitive, but
Hmm.
what we need to understand is that everything that is within us is there for a reason. There's nothing within our being that wants to, you know, act against us. Even if it seems like it's doing that, it's not. The intention behind it is always positive. So if you feel like you have this wall, right, or it's difficult for you to tune in, that's already there's a judgment within that. There's a judgment in, I should be more sensitive, you know, I really
Mm.
want to cry, I cannot cry. You know, but the first step of opening up to that sensitivity is to say, okay, there's a reason for that, there's a reason why this is in my life, and to get to know this first, and you will see that this wall will open, but it's not going to open with force, and it's
Mm.
not going to open with judgment. So yeah, the first step would be to, yeah, to be curious with yourself and to get to know yourself without expectations. I know this is difficult, and I know we all have expectations, right? If we didn't have an expectation to want to feel better in a way, we wouldn't start, and that's okay. But to be aware of that judgment and try to minimize it and just be very gentle. That that would be my main
Yeah,
advice.
that's great advice. And Fedi, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And yeah, you added a lot of value and gave so much advice. And also thank you for sharing your story as well.
Well, thank you so much. It was so much fun. I feel like, you know, these things you could talk about for days. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful that you take this initiative and share this message.
Mm. Yeah, thank you very much. And
Thank
everyone,
you.
thank you for watching and listening.